Yeah, thanks for CCJ for having me. I had asked kind of Camilla what the other topics had been for the last couple, and it seemed like maybe rhythm would be a new, different topic that hasn't been sort of covered yet. It's something I think about a lot, as I'm sure we all do. But I'm really kind of fascinated fascinated by rhythm. That's not a Gershwin joke. But I played drums from a young age, and it's always been kind of really, I think, present in my trumpet playing and affected by all the sort of drum practice and playing I've done. And so I often kind of think about the connections between these two instruments for me and the way certain things cross over or don't cross over. Um, and so what I'm going to do today is maybe we'll do some stuff we can practice together, some things I do, with the metronome sometimes, like just technical stuff, and then some ideas for practicing like kind of feel and learning drum parts on the horns and stuff like that. So hopefully, yeah, hopefully this will be like a good balance of like something that's a little bit like for everybody, whether you've been playing a lot or not a lot. I would say it's something I've noticed. I think I can say I've noticed this in my teaching now. I've been teaching enough years and like working with a lot of younger or less experienced students on trumpet and other horns that a lot of times there is not a strong sense of like rhythm and timekeeping kind of just right there with the students. So that's part of why I started to come up with this and work with my like students at the college and private students to just get us used to as horn players, for those that are horn players here, to get used to thinking about rhythm in like a constant manner, just the way a bass player would or a drummer would. Someone that's like responsible for like holding down like an ostinato, like repeating part or something that's like, rhythmically, fundamental to the music. Whereas just the nature of our instruments often as horn players, wind players, vocalists, is that we play something and then we get to like, stop playing and rest and not, we're not being heard. So we're not responsible for like playing rhythm at that time. And that's where a lot of people will kind of tune out in those moments and not really be, counting or kind of, you know, still feeling the rhythm strongly or something like that. So that's something I've just kind of noticed. And some of these exercises that we're going to do more like at the end actually kind of come out of that. So let's do, I'm going to try and hopefully I got everything kind of set up right. Let's do a couple of things we can like play together, like some metronome stuff. Um, and we'll start kind of like basically like just trying doing a few just like different subdivisions against the metronome, doing them like sometimes like in a scale context or sometimes improvising. But let's just do this. Anyone that wants to like stay muted and like play along, like let's just do. This is something I would probably do with if getting someone really used to just playing with the metronome like early on maybe or somewhat early on, and just do a scale where you're kind of changing subdivisions. So why don't we just go ahead and do like a just a little B flat major scale to start, and we're gonna start going from quarter notes to eighth notes, and then eighth note triplets, and then 16th notes. Maybe I'll demonstrate one time. So by the time we get to the top of the scale, it's just going from slow quarter notes to 16th notes. Uh, I'll do one. Right, so we'll just do it to the top of the scale. It's actually good that we're all doing this, even though there's so many good players here. I'm surprised sometimes when I still do this stuff, like when I'm going from a triplet to a 16th note, how I start to drift from the metronome right away. So even though some of this stuff I'm like, yeah, it's basic, then we start doing it. It's like actually, it still could be a little tighter. So why don't we do that? So it's every two notes you switch basically. So it's quarters, eighths, eighth note triplets, 16ths. So we'll just go to the top of the scale like that. All right, one. I'll count us off. So 1, 2, 3, 4. Yeah. So let's do the reverse order coming down. So we'll start on the 16ths and then every two notes drop back, so triplets, eighths, quarters. All right. 1, 2, 3, 4. I was thinking, possibly if there was folks here we hadn't had done as many scales or something like that with a student, I'd probably have them do this and then start changing scales to different keys, or maybe changing this from a major to like a dominant scale and be like, all right, this is Mixolydian, or maybe we'll put a sharp 11 in it and make it Lydian, something like that to kind of do this exercise, combine it with like a scale practice and like a rhythm practice at the same time. And that's something I've been thinking about, like in for practice and teaching lately, is like just thinking about what skills you're working on and what you can kind of combine into like a single exercise, like having the tuner playing a drone, you're working on a scale, but then you also maybe practice a pattern with that and you're transposing, and so you're practicing like ear training and intonation and a scale and all this stuff at the same time. So why don't we do this? Another thing I like to do is like, and I've noticed like, I think is a kind of a common practice technique with other folks I've heard doing in master classes stuff. A lot of bass players, Matt Penman and Matt Brewer and stuff like that, would do a lot of practice with the metronome at a slow tempo. So why don't we go with that a little bit now? So we just did subdivisions, up to the 16th notes, dividing it in quarters. So why don't we keep going? We'll practice with the metronome doing the quintuplets, sextuplets, septuplets, and then octuplets or whatever, 32nd notes. And we're gonna like do like one at a time and like get used to locking in these different subdivisions with just the metronome only hitting the downbeat, and practice each one for a little bit, and then we're gonna see if we can run a scale up and down going through all these subdivisions, like from the quarter notes to 32nd notes. So why don't we get the quintuplets going first? So for me, I usually just trying to turn this on like slow and then just start to like find the quintuplet in there, start to feel it. So it's like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So maybe we'll do the scale. Let's do just do that same whatever B flat major scale, and just play 5 quintuplets on each note. We'll just practice like that. So it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 2, 2, 3, 4, 5. 3, 2, 3, 4, 5. Da, 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 da. 1, 2, 3, and 4, and da, da, da. Yeah, let's do the top on the way down. Ready, go. So then let's just spend some time improvising with these quintuplets. And I think it's good to maybe start where you're connecting a lot of them. So you're playing all 5 of the subdivided little quintuplets and get used to like lining up with the metronome, and then start, pulling notes out and playing with, improvising with the rhythm, not just playing this long stream of these sort of quintuplet eighth notes, but starting to break it up and do like more rhythmically melodic phrases. So I guess we can start to just, do the usual thing, like, I guess y'all stay muted and I'll keep doing this, and we'll just sort of, we're kind of like playing together. I mean, it almost counts. I don't get to enjoy hearing you guys, but yeah, so maybe I'll start like this. I'll probably run more eighth notes and then start to break it up, but really just practice like feeling these 5s and like doing it with the metronome, just trying to keep myself honest. Like, am I actually, when do I start to rush and drag? Is it when I'm, start to learn about that stuff? Like, when I'm doing all 5 notes in each beat, I'm pretty steady, but once I start pulling some out, that's when I get behind. Or, you start to realize our tendencies a little bit, which helps. So, okay, so improvising, I'll probably, whatever, improvising, I'll move keys and stuff like that, but 2, right? So I'll do that, just improvise, keep the metronome on. And for me, like I really notice that like when I'm starting to break up that five and not play all the notes, it gets more uncomfortable for me like pretty quick. Whereas it's like now I have to really vigilantly be counting these rests and feeling the notes that I'm not playing. I think the more that we can put ourselves in that position, obviously like when we're practicing, like finding getting the stuff that we're not good at, but like with the rhythmic thing, like getting to that point where it's like I'm having trouble feeling this or noticing that you're getting unsteady, then that's usually a good good moment. It's like cool, now I'm getting to the stuff I really need to work on. So let's do sextuplets. So we'll go up a notch now. Um, that one's probably a little more familiar for us, anyways. So, um, if this feels like all right as a pace, maybe we'll jump up and practice dividing this up in 7 parts now. Get the old septuplet, beloved septuplet. You always love to see that written in your parts. Or, um, I will say that. Well, actually, I will just keep going on this. I got the metronome set at 50. It's like keeping the. I think keeping the metronome slow and what like Matt Brewer and Matt Pimmons and these people talked about is like when you have more space between that click of the metronome, then we have more time where we're actually personally keeping the time steady ourselves, not just like having it spelled out for us like on a quarter note kind of basis. That I think really has a lot to do with like developing like a strong personal, sense of steady time, like really, really good rhythm. I think our drummer friends really appreciate it when we do some of this work, and kind of, because they always do so much of it. I think like lining their whole grid up to this click, so it helps us, I think, kind of, just get steadier and stay in line. So let's try and find these septuplets. I'll probably go ahead and play the scale again, and then just start improvising, do that drill together. So. Is that all right? A little fast. All right. So can we try this? This is the other game I practice on drums and trumpet, where like going back to the scale thing and doing that with this metronome and trying to work our way from these slow quarter notes all the way to like 30-second notes. So we can just do that same B flat major scale. Let me see if I can do it. Or you can do it with me or not. I'm gonna see if I can actually get through it one time. So that could be like a you want to watch it go by, just to make sure you know where you're switching and stuff. Actually, I might need to figure out where the notes repeat for a second, but yeah, just getting used to like feel a big beat, switch subdivisions, and not like rush or drag. Like still keep that big sense of pulse really steady. I find that hugely beneficial. You know, especially like I feel like it comes up, especially if you're playing with a drummer that's more maybe like active or not always super clear and loves to like displace things and like kind of move stuff around. Like the more we have like this really grounded like big pulse that they're probably feeling too as they're like swirling around the kit. That if you're really tracking that big pulse, like as much as clock like as we can, then that often helps to just feel like you're staying linked up with somebody that's like playing a lot of like intense stuff on the drums. It's not a thought that has come up for me. So see. Almost. So that's what we're trying for. I messed up the 30-second notes. So it's every two. So I guess when we get to the top, like repeat the B flat, and that's the first one of our quintuplets. So it's B flat A is quintuplets, G F is sextuplets, F E flat or sorry A flat D is the septuplets, and then the last two are the 30 seconds. Yeah, you want to try it? Let's practice it a couple times. 1, 2, 3, 4. Whew. And the 30 seconds are hard for me. You want to just do it a couple times? For me, all I would run through these like, maybe like do each one like four, more times on each subdivision or something like that. It makes more sense. Two two notes per subdivision is good for fitting these scales or whatever. So yeah, why don't we just shed it together a couple times, then we'll move on to the next thing. 2, 3, 4. Do it again. 1, 2, 3, 4. I can't get them 30 seconds. Anyhow, this stuff I like to. This is like the rhythm nerd part of today's presentation. I feel like this stuff comes up I don't know if you like Justin Brown is great and Marcus Gilmore and Dan Wise. I feel like these are some of the strongest drummers like playing. They're in New York and like tour around a lot. Like both Marcus and Justin, you hear them with like Thundercat or George Animal Dro or Robert Glasper, or Joe Clayton, and they use a lot of that. I think that kind of language where, especially Justin, like he plays like that a lot, where he starts shifting these subdivisions, and he's great at it. It's like it's super smooth and steady, but also really kind of disorienting too, especially if you're just like, what is going on? Did he just speed up, or is it tempo or what? Like it can be pretty disorienting. So I, I think this stuff is language is getting used in modern jazz more recently, where like you're really getting used to like laying different subdivisions against a beat. So I've just tried to make it a point of putting that in my practice, and I should do it more, obviously, but it is something I turn on the metronome and try and do this stuff, do it on the drum set too. I like to sit and like try and play through beats and like switch these subdivisions as I go, try and beat Justin Brown basically. So um okay, so maybe we could switch to some other stuff. Actually, maybe one more metronome thing before we go. Like another thing to just do is like put the Yeah, just throw it really quickly. It's like just get used to playing with the metronome on different beats. Like sometimes we forget about that, but just like thinking of it as being on like maybe 2 and 4 or the and a one and something like that is really helpful. And like practicing, I like to practice tunes that way, and then try and practice tunes with the metronome, just sounding once every 2 or 4 bars or something. So maybe I'll try and demonstrate that a little bit. So I might put it like there and like play. I'm gonna practice with that as 2 and 4. Play a tune like improvise like that. And then I'll start to remove some of those. 3, 4, 1. So just hear it on beat 2. 2, 1, 2, 3. And then try and back it off, and so it's just hitting on beat 2 every other measure. 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. Right? That gets hard, but that's the stuff like doing that like in so that the metronome just comes every other bar or something like that, or even every 4 bars. I think that's what like I saw Matt Penman do in like a masterclass. It was like hitting once every 4 bars, and he was amazing at it, just like nailed it kind of every time. So that's something to throw out there as like, uh, and I found that to be more an enjoyable kind of metronome practice because it's like playing tunes, but just having that thing on and just it's like, am I lining up and yeah, really starting to notice how we space out on our time. I've always had a tendency to rush, like I like to try and play with intensity and stuff. And I know when I listen back and like think about it, it's like I have a real problem with rushing. So it's like putting this on and then making sure that I'm still doing that thing where it's like get to that point where I start getting excited and trying to like light it up a little bit and then notice how much I'm rushing and then just, try not to do that to people anymore. So maybe switching gears, other things I think are cool, especially for us that are horn players and or non drummers, non bass players, I should say. I like practicing, like playing along with bass lines and trying to practice like playing bass lines on the horn, playing along with drum parts sometimes. So I have a couple. uh, pretty standard sort of funk tunes that we're gonna like maybe play along with and just learn the bass line a little bit and just play with it just to do that thing that we don't often have to do as vocalists or horn players or I don't know, especially in a jazz context, not even like a guitarist or pianist where you're really like playing a part over and over again and just trying to do it the same way and just make it feel so good that it's interesting, like be really just great with the time. So can we do the one I was thinking of doing was one of my favorite James Brown albums is In the Jungle Groove. Every tune on there is amazing, and it's Clyde Stubblefield on that record, and I think it's Bootsy on most of these songs. Um, so I had this one queued up for us to learn the bass line and play along with the old "Give It Up or Turn It Loose." Yeah, I love every track on this record. So let's we can learn this bass line together first, and then we'll play it with them like slow, and then we'll like play it and just get used to doing it. So it's in D minor, and it's like uh, is the first part. All right, it comes back up again. Is the whole thing. So like that second part, like the second measure is uh so maybe I'll loop that one a couple times because I feel like that's a little slippery. So that's the measure two of a 2 bar phrase. So the whole thing is my fault. Uh, it's a tricky bass line actually. For me, it's like some things about it that are not intuitive for me, and I like messing it up there. Like I thought we could actually do it. I like to do this stuff with the recording, and then just practice like matching feel with somebody that has a great feel. So I think it's Bootsy Collins on this track, and he's good. He was good, and his feel's good. So I like try and play, with him and just see like, can I put all my notes in the same spot, and even just trying to translate some of the articulation stuff. Like it's always a good exercise, I guess, to try and imitate other instruments. I think it just naturally pushes us to find things that aren't idiomatic in our instrument. It's like, if you're trying to sound like a bass player on the trumpet, then probably going to change the way we articulate length of notes, certain tonal things to try and, emulate stuff. So I always feel like that's pretty valuable, to make sure that we're not just spending too much time learning from, kind of practicing with the folks like on our same instrument. Man, actually, so let's play this with the recording, but I'm gonna slow it down at like to 3/4 speed. I just did this a little bit before we started, and I was amazed like how perfect and deeply funky it sounds like when you just slow it down. Like this band was just so good. Like their time was just so incredible. So even like manipulating like this digital manipulation of it, it's like it's crushing. Like it sounds perfect. It sounds like they're really doing this tempo. So let me drop this back and we'll like play along with it a little bit. I really like the way that tune sounds at tempo. Let's just now it's actually pretty fast. Like let's play it up to tempo a little bit, and just see how it feels. Like doing it up to the speed 'cause it's pretty cooking actually. So anyhow, that's fun. I feel like that's a really valuable type of practicing time for me, just to match up feel wise. So I got one other thing for us to try it like that. So someone posted recently. Nate Smith, I think, posted a clip of Zigaboo Modalese from the Meters, and I think they did a. It was from a concert he did with that band Wolfpack. But it's a great like footage of him playing that famous Sissy Strut beat, which is, I mean, I think this is a good exercise for us too, like non-drummers, like to learn some of these really classic drum beats. Sissy Strut, that's a tune that we probably all play like way too much, depending on the type of jam sessions you've spent your time at over the years. But it's such a great drum beat, and it's like a good one to know for like handling that part of business, that you actually know the drum part to the song. So we could watch this video for a sec, and then it's cool to watch Zigaboo play it. And like, so I thought of this because I mean Nate shared it, and I was like, oh, that's so cool to just like watch him play it. And that this is something that for me would be like a perfect like kind of thing to practice along with, because the feel is so personal, like the way his eighth notes feel, just the way the meters played, and like I feel like, I don't know, New Orleans too, but like that, those guys in particular, like the way they could kind of inhabit this thing where like it's not exactly swung or straight, it's just this like slippery, like really greasy, but like totally dialed in, like one of the deepest pockets. I think Ziggy was just like, that's one of the, one of our greatest like American, pocket drummers for sure. So let's see, I made like I try to rip that off and then make a little a loop for us to maybe try and practice with. And so the first thing we're gonna do is like just put, just play the drum beat like on our instruments, like put notes to it. So yeah, I just grabbed like 8 bars of that and tried to set the loop decently. Yeah, so here's like 4 bars or 8 bars of everything. And then, so I'm gonna just play along with it. I'll play like in that sort of C minor, and yeah, notes to all these, and hopefully, I guess the sound will work while I'm sharing computer sound and playing at the same time. But so like this. Not so much. So I like doing like this. So like I'll learn that part, like translate that drum part to my instrument, and then just have like a loop like this, and I'm gonna play with it, and then just start improvising, but kind of like improvising the way well, let me think about it. Just improvising, just only using rhythmic, notes that fit in that drum part. So basically just kind of playing out some of it and just practicing like coming in and out of the drum part and trying to like extrapolate just different phrases from that, really engaging an idea of like improvising with a part, not like improvising with a chord change or a tempo or a form or things. Like here's this really specific rhythm and that's the whole foundation of the improvising right now. So you have to really adhere to it. This is, I thought about this on trumpet because like it comes up much more on drums, where it's like you have a drum part that you play and you start to maybe open up and like fill in out of some of the notes or simplify it for certain sections, like leaving out certain things. And I've kind of liked playing with that, trying to translate that to the horn and trying to translate that to like a inspiration for the improvising, to like really adhere to this just part. So like everything has to fit this like rhythmic sort of framework that's created. So why don't we just play with that for a little bit? Anyhow, that's the stuff I had kind of put together to share in terms of some of my stuff that I teach and practice for rhythmic stuff.